We are back for step 2 of outlining your speech. I know, it's getting good, isn't it? Okay, let's go back to my handy dandy presentation here. Where I left you last time was the thesis statement. We finished with the thesis statement. We have a very clear statement of what we want the audience to take away from our speech. Now it is time for us to move into putting the presentation together. And when we start working on the presentation, you want to build the body first. And it's really tempting. I really like this guy. He's gonna do it. He's gonna build his body. That's my husband. So I'm just kidding. It's not really. But we want to jump into the introduction, right? Because it's the first thing you're gonna say. But that's not what we're going to do. We're going to build the body first. And so we need to take a few steps and make sure that we have taken care of the body, because it's the most significant part of the speech. For a 4 to 5 minute speech, which is what your first speech is, the body should take up almost the whole thing, 3.5 to 4 minutes. And if you build the body, it tells you what to put in the introduction and the conclusion. So you have to decide on the body you need. We've already considered our purpose. We know why we're speaking and we know what we want for our audience. And we've already started thinking about who our audience is, our very happy, beautiful, multicultural audience here. We need to think about a few questions in relation to the audience. And the first question is, what do they already know about my topic? Because I don't want to be told something I already know, and they don't either. So we need to try as accurately as possible to gauge their level of knowledge. And we also then need to decide what we need to enlighten or convince them about. So I'm still thinking about my audience, even though this is my speech. After we consider our audience, we are going to consider our evidence. Now, you have spent some time gathering your evidence, and I spent some time gathering my evidence. And I took all of the articles that I had looked up, and here they are, right here in the bottom of my tray here. Each article I read, and I went through and I highlighted the specific elements within that article that I could use to support or to explore the topic of my speech. And so what I did was I gathered up my evidence. At the top of each slide, you see the title and you see the beginning of the URL. That's mostly for me to be able to find the source when I need to cite it. And then this is the information from each article that I could use. And so I'm really putting together the kind of information that I need to make my arguments about what life is like for a bakery owner. I had 3 sources, but I found that the Bureau of Labor Statistics source didn't really give me as much information as I thought it was going to. All I got from there was annual wage, which is not amazing. And so I actually went and found another source, and the additional source I found was written, it's a blog, so we have to question the credibility, but it's a blog written by a woman who started a full-time bakery after she had a successful home business, and then she decided to close the bakery because it was so much work. And so I feel like she is a credible source on this topic because she actually has the experience. So I have like broad industry-wide information, and I also have personal testimonies from individuals. So I've gathered all of my evidence, and I'm thinking about my evidence and thinking like, how am I going to put this together? And so when I start thinking about my evidence, I'm going to group my evidence based on natural relationships. Now, there are lots of different ways I can put my information together. And sometimes your speech leads you to a particular organizational pattern. So if you are like telling someone how to get around town, you're probably going to use the spatial organizational pattern. Or if you're trying to convince someone that something is better than something else, comparative advantage is the way to go. Now you may be sitting there thinking, Millie, where did you get all of this? Or you may not, because you may have read your textbook, which is where I got this information. This is chapter 8. It is perhaps the most boring chapter in your textbook. And at the same time, it is almost certainly the most important chapter in your textbook. If you skimmed over chapter 8, I am going to recommend that you go back and you read it closely, because understanding how to organize your information effectively is the key to being a successful speaker. So let's hop back to my handy dandy presentation, but y'all read chapter 8. No, I'm going to show you one more thing. If you're sitting there and you're like, Millie, you gave us this outline template, but how do I know what an outline is supposed to look like? Well, looky here. Chapter 8 has a sample outline for you. Oh, and look at this. It has a sample full sentence outline and a sample speaking outline, or you can call it a keyword outline, which is what I tend to call it. This is some good stuff. Use it. Use it to be successful. Okay, let's go back to my handy dandy. All right, so we are going to decide on the body we need, and we are going to group our evidence based on the natural relationships. Now, I am going to end our tutorial here. So here's what you need to do. Go read your articles and the information that you found. Don't just say, oh, this is a good article. Find specific pieces of information in it that you can use in your own speech. Gather that information into a particular place. You can do it like I did, where you highlight it and then you pull it out. You could write it on index cards. I always have index cards with me. You could write it on Post-it notes, but group your information so that you can see how it works together in natural relationships. I am going to tell you that for this speech, I am going to use oh, no, I didn't mean to press that. I am going to use the topical organizational pattern. And that really just means that these subjects can stand alone on their own. They don't naturally lead from one to another. So I am going to have to decide how I'm going to organize my information by subject. So that is what I am going to work on. I will meet you back here next time for a very exciting lesson in main point characteristics. All right, good luck.